Hi, I'm Ted Fay, and I like finding history. It can be in a museum, a hotel, a park, inside or outside, in a church, a house, a store, and of course old buildings and even ghost towns. Wherever there were people, they made history. So I've set out to find those cool places and things that have a great past. Just think of me as your history delivery guy, who brings you new and fresh servings of history to go. Just off of Highway 95 in the town of Goldfield, Nevada, stands a proud old structure. Over the years, it housed a number of businesses, including the Bank of John S. Cook. The structure itself has survived fires and floods, and now on special occasions, the current owners allow visitors to explore the insides of this true ghost town gem. We've been hearing the story of John Cook and his bank and his journey through Nevada. But this particular building also seems to have a reputation for having other residents. So what I want to do is just do a little exploration. We're just going to start off on the third floor, and then we're going to go all the way down into the basement. And I have an app called Ghost Radar. And when there's a spirit nearby, a little orb shows up there. And then it also tells me if there's any words that it's speaking. If the spirits decide to say anything while we're roaming around, we'll hear what they have to say. So let's go on our little ghost adventure through the Cook Bank building. Before we decided to hunt ghosts, I asked my friend John Ekman to give us some history about this building and about the man, John Cook.
Well, my name is John Ekman. I'm the president of the Goldfield Historical Society. I've seen copies of the Eastern papers, Midwest papers, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, with huge spreads, front page spreads about the Tonopah and Goldfield booms. Goldfield, in fact, deserved its reputation of being the world's greatest gold camp. That's what the papers of the time described it as.
And it attracted the attention of a guy in Ohio.
Yep, John S. Cook. Born in 1871 in Columbus. In his 20s, I guess he got the wanderlust and he went to seek his fortune in Nevada. Obviously, the excitement in Tonopah, the big silver strike in 1900, must have piqued his interest to a degree because that's what got him to move out to Nevada from Ohio. So I think it was the excitement in Tonopah. Any young 20s red-blooded American would at least try their luck in a booming mining town.
Speaking of luck, we were still trying our own luck with discovering some paranormal residents in Mr. Cook's bank. Just so you know, my battery was at 88%, and now, within minutes, I'm down to low battery. So, let's see what we can squeeze in on our phone with my Ghost Radar. Well, I wonder if Mr. Cook, even though he never worked in this bank, because it just carries his name, I wonder if he ever visits this place. All right. Everything, it seems, takes time. Looking for ghosts or building a successful bank.
When John Cook arrives in Tonopah in 1901, he starts a lumber company, a lumber yard, which he ran for a year apparently unsuccessfully. So by 1902, he was with new partners, George Nixon and Tasker Odie. They wound up establishing the 9 Ormsby County Bank. They became quite successful. In 1904, John S. Cook found himself to be one of the more prominent citizens in Tonopah. And I don't know how a person gets to that point so quickly, although maybe in a boomtown you do. But he slingshot to prominence real quick.
With a good start in Tonopah, it was prime time to head for Goldfield.
So that very same year, he moved to Goldfield. So 1904 finds him in Goldfield with his brother Herbert, starting a banking operation. And by 1905, George Nixon from Tonopah, remember, and a new partner, George Wingfield, decided to support him with their capital to build the John S. Cook and Company Bank.
Goldfield is full of remnants.
like this ornate bank vault which stands all by itself. This vault is all that remains of the Nye Ormsby Bank, which was owned by John Cook's partners. And though nothing remains of Cook's original bank, Cook's business journey began near here, and he quickly realized that Goldfield was like no other town he'd ever seen.
John Cook came to Goldfield and found a very, very, very lively town. A town that was growing by leaps and bounds. The gold seemed to have no end. They were shipping $100,000 worth out. They had expected the arrival of the first railroad in 1905 and two more in 1906. It was to develop a population over 20,000. It was a 24-hour town. There were folks from mining engineers to geologists to bankers to businessmen, all the way down to the folks that were just trying to find their newfound wealth by digging in the ground.
Just like Mr. Cook, I was on a journey of my own.
So now we've come down to the second floor. I've got a little orb here. Looks like there might be somebody in front of us right there. No. Is anybody talking? 2 words so far. First word is Tim, and the second word is without. Okay, I'm about to cut. The word is Tim.
Whoa.
And it says without.
Yeah.
I'm without Tim. Okay, that's
Yeah.
bizarre. One of my good friends, one of my almost adopted nephew, son, kids is Tim, and I'm up here in Nevada, and then it says without Tim. So, okay, I
What
don't
does
know.
that mean?
I don't know.
Honestly, it was one of the weirdest moments I ever had on camera. Let me catch my breath while we go back to Mr. Cook's story. It seems that he became a bit of a celebrity while in Goldfield.
He was involved in bringing water and sewer to Goldfield. Also at that time, he was involved with Diamond Field Jack Davis, who was a former a gunslinger, turned honest, I guess, and they developed Diamond Field, which is one of the outlying suburbs of Goldfield in the mining district. He also was involved in starting the Montezuma Club, which is a club for all the movers and shakers of Goldfield, the businessmen and the various other folks that made decisions in Goldfield.
Like most who came for the boom, they also went to the next boom, and so on and so on. And it was the same with Mr. Cook.
Things were really, really hopping in Goldfield. Then we had the strike in Raleigh. I think the first coal was discovered in 1904, and the city began to grow. So by 1905, it was obvious to all concerned that if you didn't get in on the ground floor, you're going to be left behind. So John S. Cook started a bank in Raleigh. And in fact, it was such a big draw that we lost some of Goldfield's population to Rhyolite as the newest strike. It was like a no-brainer, I think, for John Cook and his partners to place a branch in Rhyolite. And it exists today in Rhyolite, just a shell of its former self, but it was probably the most prominent building in Rhyolite. You can see photographs from 1908, 1910. From the mines above Rhyolite looking down at the town, and the John S. Cook Bank building stands out as the most prominent building in town. So they put a lot of money into that bank.
Back at the hunt, I wasn't sure what was going on, but there did seem to be some activity in the room.
But we're in this room here. There seems to be somebody hanging around over here. I don't know. See, if we look on the orb thing there's the orb, and now he's gone. We'll just, right here, there's a couple, yellow, which means they're fairly intense. There's rumors that somebody might have been killed in here. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. We need to keep investigating.
As I walked through the dark halls of this building, I wondered what led to the Cook Bank becoming just this shell of its former self that I see now. Even with all of the success of Goldfield and the surrounding boomtowns, nothing could shield them from forces thousands of miles away on Wall Street, and what was called the Panic of 1907.
The 1907 Panic was an international event, and it was not unlike economic downturns that we see to this very day. There was a period in Goldfield where all but the John S. Cook Bank closed. They could not keep up with the withdrawals. People were afraid that the banks were going to fail, and some of them did. And they were trying to withdraw all their money, and some of these banks did not have sufficient cash on hand to pay off all of their, all of their depositors. John S. Cook Bank, through some manipulations that were, I think, spearheaded by Nixon and Wingfield, using cash from the Goldfield Consolidated Mines Company, which they had just formed, and various other operations which they brought in cash from other banks outside of Goldfield, they were able to stay open. They were the only bank in Goldfield to stay open during 1907 panic.
Though Mr. Cook could keep his bank open, Goldfield started to grind to a halt, and John Cook looked in other directions, all to no avail.
I don't think he was properly capitalized and just failed. He started a steel company to supply steel to the Boulder Dam project, which also failed. So somebody else supplied steel to the Boulder Dam project. So he had a lot of great ideas, but I don't think he was properly capitalized. And there are multiple instances where he wrote to George Wingfield to ask him to invest, and George Wingfield turned him down every time. I don't think he understood how to raise capital. He understood, where money could be made, and he understood the facts and the figures and the dollars and the cents. But when it came to going to someone else and asking for backing, he appeared to not be successful. But he spent the remainder of his life from 1909 when he left Goldfield to 1945 when he died in Los Angeles, going through multiple iterations of failed businesses.
And yet his name remained on the bank after he left.
Yes, it did. John Cook left Goldfield in 1909 after having sold his banking interest to Nixon and Wingfield, and his name carried on. I think one of the reasons is because he had such a stellar reputation. And I think both George Nixon and George Wingfield understood that. And so they maintained John S. Cook and Company brand because he was so highly liked and he was such a capable individual that it seemed only right that they should continue his name for this banking corporation.
John Eckman is pleased that the owners of the John S. Cook Bank building are dedicated to preserving its history.
And I really do want to leave some of this for posterity. The folks that came before us, what is preserved now is preserved because of them. And I want to see future generations see this same preservation of our American culture, of what it was like at the end of the Western frontier in the last great gold camp, the last great gold mining town, and to help them better understand where we come from and maybe help them understand which direction we need to be going.
Well, you're gonna love this one. There's one place left in the Cook Bank building that I need to take you to. And it's down here. So come on, come with me. And let's go down to the last place I'm gonna take you in the Cook Bank building. So come on down. Watch your head. Watch your head there. So, this is the very basement of the building. So I'm going to take you right over here. Everything we're doing is legitimate, but it is a little different. There's one last vault remaining here, but you can see up here the words, and it should say United States Trust, and that's who was in this building. Here it is. My hometown, Pittsburgh Safe Company, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's my hometown, Steelers fan. But beyond that, I do have some ghosts hanging around. So we've just got a whole smorgasbord of emotions going on right now. And this is about as sort of odd as you can get. In the bottom of a vault, underneath the ground, in the ghost town of Goldfield, Nevada. But those are the kind of predicaments we get into in History to Go. So, this is the end of our show. I hope we get out. Well, you'll find out if we come back with another episode of History to Go. All right, you guys, let's, Joel, you ready to try to get out of here? Let's, come on with me. I don't want to leave you. All right.